Hello, my name is Valerie Francis, and this is the Story Nerd Podcast. In today's bonus episode, I am thrilled to welcome Kathleen Fox to the show. Kathleen is an assistant agent with the Rights Factory in Toronto, and she's also an editor who offers a wide range of services to authors. And if all of this wasn't enough to keep her busy, Kathleen also posts advice for writers on both her Instagram site and her YouTube channel. Kathleen Fox, welcome to Story Nerd.
Thank you so much. I'm so happy to be here.
I'm excited. I will try to keep this to a half an hour. Because all I need is an open mic, really, and I just off I go. So, but we want to hear from you today. So, Kathleen, before we started recording, I mentioned to you that we've got quite a diversified audience here in Story Nerd. Everything from filmmakers and screenwriters and actors to literary agents like yourself. We've got some best-selling authors who listen to us, and we have first-time writers. So today, I'm mostly thinking of the listeners who are maybe working on their first book and are looking to publish for the first time, or maybe they have self-published or have published with a small local press, and they're considering the traditional publishing route. And Kathleen, I think that your experience as an agent and as an editor, I think this gives you a particularly interesting perspective on this business and one that you could share with our fellow story nerds. So listen, thank you for your time today. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, it's my pleasure.
All right, let's go. Traditional publishing is a thrill ride.
Yes. That's one way of putting it, yeah.
Yes, it is. It's a roller coaster. It's usually going to require a writer to have a literary agent, right? And to get an agent, the writer has to survive this query process.
Mm-hmm.
There's lots of moving parts to a query, like, you've got the letter and the synopsis, and you got a one-sentence pitch and a positioning statement. But you also have the sample pages. Now, we could spend an hour at least on any one of those topics, but what I'd like to focus on are those key sample pages. And I want to get your thoughts as an agent, but also as an editor. So let's just start by, why don't you tell us what you look for from a writer when someone is querying you? Do you want 10 pages, 10,000 words? Do you work from the synopsis only? Do you want the whole manuscript? What are you looking for?
Yeah, so I generally ask for about the first 10 pages. And I do find that a lot of authors are like, well, do we have to end it exactly 10 pages? What if it's in the middle of a sentence? And so, 10 pages, give or take, right? So if it goes on to the 11th page, or even if that chapter ends on, halfway through the 9th page, that's totally fine. So, and some other agents will or ask for 50 pages. Sometimes they'll, probably in most cases, they're not going to ask for the full right off the bat. But yeah, generally 10 pages is a good kind of thing to aim for. So the query, the synopsis, the first 10 pages, and I think in the form that I use on Query Manager, there is an area for a one-line pitch. So yeah.
Okay. Now, I can't, I said this to you right before we hit record, I cannot honestly imagine what it is like to open your query box, because you're not always open. But you open to queries, and in a couple of days, you've got 400 or 500 queries to sift through. And so that forces you then, for your own sanity, and to try and manage your own workflow,
Mm-hmm.
to close down periodically.
Yeah.
Now, assuming that the person who has queried you has followed all your guidelines properly, right? Like they've sent you something that is actually on your manuscript wish list. They've written a good query letter and all that kind of stuff. How do you know that this is a project you're going to want to read more of from those sample pages? Take us through your process.
That is an excellent question. So I always start with a query. I never skip ahead. So I have to be interested in the premise, and I have to feel like the premise, the plot paragraphs are very well written, because that kind of indicates, and not always, but it generally indicates how the writing's going to be in the pages. Um, Sometimes I will read the synopsis, like, if I feel like maybe I need a little bit more information, sometimes I'll go to the synopsis before I get to the pages. Um, but then when I get to the pages, like, honestly, the more queries I have read and the more that I'm looking for something, the more I can say that I've always been one to follow my instincts. And so if my gut is not like, if I'm not super excited about this and I don't get that like intangible feeling, then I'm probably not going to go forward with it. And that's only because, like, it's not because it's not good, or, it's not a good idea, or the writing's not great. It's just, I hate this word because I know it's overused, but it is very much a subjective industry. And what I fall in love with isn't necessarily what the next person would fall in love with. So I am looking for that spark. I'm looking for that feeling that I absolutely have to read this. There's something just so interesting about the premise, and the writing is so good that I can't put it down.
Well, this is art, and art is by its very nature subjective, which is why Melanie and I are so nerdy about story theory, because it allows us to approach something that is inherently subjective with a degree of objectivity.
Hmm.
And it's really hard when you're doing your own work, because it's your
Yeah.
blood, sweat, and your tears going into this thing, and probably years of your life. So that's why I keep banging this story theory drum. Anyhow, you said a couple of things there that I want to pick up on. You said that the writing, that you feel super excited by the writing, and that there's this spark that's there. What gets you super excited? Have you been able to pinpoint anything that makes you go, "Oh, yeah, yeah, okay, I wanna hear more?" Or is it really a gut check every time?
It's going to be a gut check every time. And when I first started agenting and I was looking at all of these amazing queries, I think I didn't rely on that gut feeling enough, and that made me request more.
Okay.
Which, and I liked those things, and there was something in there that obviously I was drawn to, but like, we can't possibly represent everyone who queries us. And so I wish I could say that there is a magic formula, or that there's a magic something there that I could say, like, this is what you need to do. There's just no way. It's the combination of the writing, the intentionality behind the words that are used, how the sentences are all put together, um, how much curiosity I feel, how, like, do I feel any tension? Do I feel any curiosity? Do I feel emotion and voice? Those are the four top things that I'm looking for in those opening pages. And of course, it has to run through the rest of the manuscript, right? It can't just be great in the first 10 pages, but those are the four most important things. Like, there's a lot of important things, but I think those are the four most important elements that should be in any opening pages. I have to feel curious. I have to feel some kind of emotion. I want to see strong voice and tension. There's got to be even just a little bit of tension.
What Okay, one of the things that Melanie and I keep saying is that the irony in our business is that there is no set lexicon. Like, there's no set list of definitions that mean the same thing to everybody all the time, right? Like, if
Right.
we were accountants, no matter where we studied in the world, we would all know what a debit is. We would all be able to create a spreadsheet, a balance sheet and a profit and loss statement, because it's the same. In writing, and probably in most art forms, like, you and I might completely understand point of view in our own way, but have different ways to talk about it and different terms to use. So you just said voice was really important to you. What do you mean by voice? I know what I think of, but it's not necessarily what you're thinking of when you're thinking of voice. So tell me more about that.
So, voice would be like the personality of the person on the page. Like, what are their quirks? What are their habits? How do they think? versus what do they say. Um, there's a lot that goes into voice, and having a strong voice on the page is just meaning that your character is developed really, really well. Um, and it's the opening pages is hard to you have to have some time spent on the page to develop your characters, but yeah, again, like there's not it's not going to be the same thing or the same word combination or whatever for all stories, right? Each story is going to be different. But yeah, it comes down to how strong is your character's personality on that page, and how does that come through in the words?
Right. So it's the character you want to attach to the character. It's that empathy do you know the book Wired for Story, Lisa Cron?
Oh yes,
Yeah.
yep,
She talks about this all. This is her opening intro in the whole book. And that's another drum I keep banging. If anyone has not yet gotten and absorbed and read multiple times Wired for Story by Lisa Cron, as soon as you're finished listening to this episode, go order it, because you're doing yourself a huge favor.
I
Because
agree.
the answer to, well, why do I have to do it that way? Why is that necessary? All of those answers are in that book.
Yep. My copy is sitting right over there. I can look at it. Story Genius and Wired for Story are right there, and I recommend them all
Exactly.
the time.
Exactly. I gotta get her on the show. I gotta talk
Yeah,
to her.
she's fabulous.
Yeah, yeah. We started the whole podcast by just quoting her for seasons. So to me, voice is also the artistry. And that is the thing that I'm not sure can be taught. And I use the example of a painter. Like, if someone wanted to learn how to paint, they can go and learn about perspective. They can go and learn the color wheel. They can learn what all the different brushes do. They can learn the difference between watercolor and oil. That's the theory. But then they have to take all of that and they have to go play with it, and they have to practice and develop their own artistry. So that, I mean, a Van Gogh looks different than a Monet, even if they used the same. Now, I'm not an art historian, so I'm not sure if they actually used the same paints or not, but let's, for argument's sake, say they did. The paintings look completely different because of their artistry. So to me, the voice is the artistry. And it depends, and it's going to change with each book, because you might be writing a book that's first person and your main character is a 14-year-old girl. The next book you write might be in third person. So you've got a narrator now telling the story, as opposed to it being from a first person juvenile narration. That's all artistry. And it's practice writing over and over and over. Now, in your role as an editor, I don't know if you have ever given this advice or had this conversation with any of your clients, but for me as a writer and me as an editor, often I will tell people to actually not worry about their opening pages when they're starting to write. Just start writing somewhere. Just start writing, because you may not know where your story starts, and you may not yet have the voice of your character. So the opening pages are probably the last thing that you'll polish. As an editor, how have you approached that with your clients?
Well, I mean, when I get someone's full manuscript, um, there's lots of times where I don't think that where we're opening should be where we're opening, and I will often say, like, your third chapter, I think that's where we should open this book. Um, and you're right. It's because, like, when you start writing, the natural instinct is just start writing from the beginning, right? And that's just, that then it progresses, and then all of a sudden, not all of a sudden, after a long time, you have a fully drafted manuscript, right? And you're like, okay, cool. We've got the beginning, we've got the end, everything's great. But when you first start writing, that's probably not your strongest. Um, your abilities might not be as strong when you first started writing that story as they are when you get into the thick of things, right? And as you get to know your character, or characters, I should say. So so I do get sometimes some manuscripts where I will suggest that the beginning might not be where it might not be the strongest option to start the story. So yeah, it's hard to give that feedback because, and I've been a writer, I've been in that place and hand my book baby over to someone and then you get feedback and it's not what you're hoping for. And I think it can be hard and, challenging to hear your story's not opening in the right place. But my job as an editor is to help you make that story stronger. So if that means that you have to go back and revisit the beginning and maybe move some things around, um, because by the time you get to the end of the story, you know your character way better than how much you knew them at the beginning. So you can kind of take that knowledge and tackle the beginning again to make it stronger.
Val McDermott said the same thing. I was listening to like I'm a bit of a author interview junkie, and I'll often have them just on in the background just to kind of help me get into the vibe because I'm an extrovert in case you can't tell, but writing is very much a solitary job. So I'll have often interviews going on in the background. And she said that she handed in a manuscript one time to her agent at the time, and she had, I don't know, a dozen chapters or so written. And that's what she sent in. And the agent called back and said, "Great job, Val. You're doing wonderfully. But we all know that those first 5 chapters are going in the garbage, right? We all know that chapter 6 is really where the story starts." And she said she was just completely deflated. But after she got over the shock of hearing that, she went, "Yeah, that is where the story started."
Mm,
But she needed to kind of
yeah.
take a running start at it. So listen, if someone like Val McDermott needs to take a running start at her manuscript and let the first 5 chapters go because the story really starts in chapter 6, it's okay. We can take a running start at it too. This is why God invented editing. This is why red pens
Yes.
exist.
Yeah.
We don't need to panic about it at all. Now, you also said in your opening pages you need to feel curious, you need to feel an emotional connection, and you need to feel tension. Now, these are story theory things. These are things that can be taught.
Hmm.
Because I mean, by we, I mean, people like Lisa Cron and scholars much smarter than me have already studied this stuff for years and years and years and years and years and
Yeah.
figured out what is it that creates tension? What is that? What's making me curious here? So the good news here is that 75% of the things that you're looking for can be learned objectively, and then you just play with them and get better at using them.
Hmm.
And the process of playing with them and learning to use them, that develops your voice, which is the other 25% that you're looking for. So I
Right.
think this is really positive stuff so
Yeah.
far. Why approach this business with a negative perspective? Let's just look at the glass half full all of the time. Okay, I have a question for you, and I hope it's not an unfair question, but I'm going to ask it anyway. When I first got into this business, I met an editor, an acquisitions editor at one of the big 5 publishing houses. And he told me that he can tell in the first couple of sentences whether this is going to be a book that he's interested in or not. Now, by the time it would get to him, some poor writer had already gone through the query
Hmm.
process and had finally signed with an agent. And together they had worked on the book and put the submission package together and on and on and on. So they'd already jumped a number of hurdles. And he said, I'll just read a couple of sentences and know whether I want it or not. And I will continue to read the submission if this is an agent that I have a good reputation with. And I'm thinking, I'm not seeing it, but I know this agent wouldn't send it to me if there wasn't something here. So it's kind of the relationship with the agent that is giving them the motivation to continue reading. So the submissions that you're getting, the writer is just starting the hurdle process, right?
Yeah.
They may have worked with an editor, they may have published before. Like I'm guessing the people who submit to you have a wide variety of backgrounds and experience as a writer.
Yeah.
So when you open up, you say, I'm going to take the next hour and go through the first 5 names on the top of my inbox and see if there's anything here. And you open up the submission, the writing sample document. How far into it honestly, do you know whether this is something, whether this, and I'm not even asking whether this is a story you might be interested in, but whether this is a writer who's got the chops or not?
Mhm.
How far into it? Hopefully that's
Mm.
not an unfair question.
No, no, not unfair, because I know that's something that everybody's curious about. It is a challenging question because it's not the same. It's not necessarily the same for every single query. So what I can say is that I may not know if I'm going to finish the entire sample or request the entire manuscript in the first page. I might not know, but I usually will know by the first page if I don't want to read it. So sometimes that means I don't get through the sample. We don't have time to read and read and read. I mean, that's all we do every day, especially for me because I'm an editor too, right? So reading manuscripts, that's all I do every day, but we can't, if we know in our hearts that we're not going to be offering on something, like it's we have to pass. We have to pass. So and if there is something in there that makes me want to read the rest of the sample, then of course I will do that. And if at the end of those 10 pages I'm not feeling that spark, then I won't ask for the manuscript. So that just no pressure at all, right? For those first 10 pages. But yeah, it's easier for me to say that I know within the first page that I'm not going to request more than it is for me to say, I know within the first page that I will request more. Does that make sense?
Yeah, totally.
Yeah.
Totally. Very, and I understand because until I became an editor. Now, you read a lot more unpublished work than I do, obviously, because you're doing both jobs.
Mhm.
But it didn't take me too long after becoming a professional editor when, because first when this acquisitions editor told me that, I thought, you can not, that can't be true. That can't possibly be true. It didn't take me too long until I realized, oh yeah, it's true. It's true.
Mhm.
Now, I'm not evaluating it on whether I'm going to buy it or not because that's not what I do,
Mhm.
but I can evaluate whether the writer has had experience with writing, whether
Yes.
there's a facility with the language. And most of the people I work with, their line writing is lovely.
Mhm.
What they lack is knowledge of story structure. That's the easy part. Learning the story structure part, learning the story theory, that is so easy
Mhm.
and can be done really quickly. It's the practicing it and just writing all of the time and getting the voice,
Yeah.
getting your artistry, um, learning how to put sentences together in a different way. Not even necessarily different from other writers, but different from all the sentences that you just wrote.
Right.
Because it can become really repetitive.
Yeah.
Melanie did we taught a course a little while ago. Melanie did a great section, a great study on the musicality of prose. I must
Mm.
get her to do it again because she just took a paragraph where it was, you know, it was okay writing. There was nothing wrong with the writing, but it felt monotonous.
Yeah.
And then she just changed the sentence length. She changed the types of words, and suddenly there was a flow.
Mhm.
But also, she used that paragraph where there was a steady like repetition of sentence types and lengths and all that kind of stuff, and almost use it as a drum beat, as a way to create tension if that's what you wanted to do,
Yeah.
right? Like there's no right or wrong
Mhm.
in and of itself. Certain things do certain jobs really well, and when you which is all theory and grammar, and when you understand that stuff, then you get to pick and choose and know,
Yeah.
okay, here's how I can do it. All right. I have another question that I hope is not an unfair question, but I'm really curious because as a writer and as an editor, I have a perspective. I don't know what your perspective is as an agent. So I'm really curious.
Mhm.
How much stock do you put in the opening sentence?
Well, I would say a lot, really. I do look for a sentence that is immediately drawing me in. So, I have kind of a list of like, it's an odd number, but I like odd numbers, 21 things that I look for in opening pages. And one of those things is
Ah,
is a killer opening line. And so as an editor, when I'm going through, well, even as an agent too, um, sometimes I'm able to pick out a different line and I'm like, "Oh my goodness, why aren't we leading with that?"
you
That needs to
buried
be
the
your opening
lead.
line. Yeah, exactly. So, so yeah, I some when you think about a book in a bookstore, some people will look at the back and that's good enough and they'll like it and they'll buy it. Some people will read the first page, some people will read the first chapter, some people will open up the middle, and if the middle is good, then that's one of my clients actually was recently talking about that. Don't look at the first few pages, look at the middle. And if the middle grabs you, it's probably going to be a good book. So there's all kinds of different ways that you can judge a book, right? Whether or not you want to read it. But one of those things is the opening line or two, like the opening paragraph. Is it enough to compel someone to want to read the rest of the page? And at the bottom of that page, is that enough to compel them to turn to the next page, and so on and so on. So yeah, I think an opening line has to be, I don't want to say perfect because that's very and there is no such thing as perfection, but it has to be something that will immediately draw people in my opinion.
And again, is that a gut check thing, or is there something quantifiable in it? Something that you can point to and go, this is why this sentence works and grabbed me, and this is why this sentence didn't.
If I look at a sentence, I can usually pinpoint what it is about it that is pulling me in. But again, it's not like 2 plus 2 is 4. It's not a formula, right? It's kind of this magical combination of things that is the result of someone who has put in all of that time and effort and, they've learned the craft.
There are days when I kind of wish it was 2 plus 2 equals 4.
Yeah.
Those
Yeah.
those are fleeting, because if it was, then the artistry would be gone. The personality
Exactly.
would be gone. And
Yeah.
then we're down the AI route, which is a whole other conversation that we will not
Yep.
go down, because Kathleen, a rant will come out of me
Oh,
that I don't
same,
need to.
same.
So my thought on the opening sentence is that, and we might be saying the same thing, but in a different way. The
Mhm.
goal of the opening sentence is to get them to read the next sentence.
Yep.
That's what it has to do. And
Yep.
the goal of the second sentence is to get them to read the third sentence until finally they're at the end of the page and they don't know how they got there so quickly. And they need
Yeah.
to turn it over. Like Anthony Horowitz is a personal favorite of mine and Melanie's. Part of the reason is his books feel like they read themselves. That's how smooth the line writing
Yeah.
is. That's my goal. Just have the book read itself. Okay. You mentioned we're nearly out of time already. Only like a couple of sentences, couple of questions into my list. All right. You mentioned there, and one of the questions I did want to ask you is, do you have a checklist of things you're looking for, whether formal or informal? And you just said you have a list of 21 things.
I
Is
do.
that a list that anyone who wanted to query you could get
Yes.
and sort of evaluate themselves? Is that on your website somewhere?
It is. I believe it's on both my websites, my agent one and my edits. Definitely on my editorial one, at foxeditorial.com. So I do have just a few kind of little blog posts or articles or whatever you want to call them up there. And that's I want to say maybe the top one, the first one that you look at when you're there.
Somehow I missed that. I've looked at your site so often that my apologies, I missed it.
No, it's all
Um,
good.
all right. Um, we're out of time already. Oh, I'm so sad. Will you come back and talk to us again on Story Nerd?
Absolutely. I would love to.
Yay. Yay. Okay, so as we record this now on February 27th, 2026, I know that currently you are closed to queries, but I know you're going to open up again.
Yeah.
So why don't you tell people what kinds of things that you are looking for, like what's in your manuscript wish list, but also what kind of writer are you looking to work with? Because this is a partnership between you and your clients.
Mhm.
Writers don't sometimes I fear that writers are looking to agents to give them a job. Um,
Yeah.
but as a writer, you are your own company. You as an agent are your own company.
Mhm.
And a writer and an agent are coming together in a business partnership. So what kind of writer are you looking to go into business with?
Yeah. Well, I mean, usually we're representing people that are wanting, like, they want the long haul, right? It's not just one book. It's what comes after, what comes after. Um, and so yeah, when I'm looking for writers, I would love to work with them for more than just one book. And sometimes that's not always the case. Sometimes there's a reason that they want to write one book and that's it. Um, but in most cases, I find that writers, like, this is what they want to do. Um, so
I apologize. Um,
that's okay.
this for anyone listening, my chocolate Labrador Josie has been jumping up. She is pregnant right now, and she is very
Oh,
needy. So
oh,
that's why she got to stay in the room while we did the interview. So she's just looking for love right now. I
oh,
needed a
that's
lot of
so
that too when I
sweet.
was pregnant, so I understand.
Yeah, yeah, same.
So I'm
um,
sorry. Please continue.
No, no, that's okay. But yeah, in terms of what I'm looking for in queries and genres and things like that, I am looking for fiction and nonfiction, mostly in the adult space. Um, when I first became an agent, I love thrillers. I'm going to be the thriller agent, and that has branched off to all kinds of different things. So I am still looking for more thriller, horror, but like haunted things and ghosty things and like psychological horror, not body gore stuff, please.
Body horror is not for the faint of heart.
Yeah, yeah,
It's not for
exactly.
the, but a good ghost story. Oh,
Yes. Yeah,
I
I'm
love
all
a good
about the
ghost
haunted
story.
things.
Yeah,
Yeah,
me too.
same.
Yep.
Anything with witches, so historical fiction, historical fantasy, um, thrillers, suspense, that kind of thing. I kind of want to say rom-com, but I'm not so much of a rom-com reader, so it's going to be a hard sell. So it's got to be like something really good. And people that are going onto my website will see me mention You've Got Mail about, I don't know, 6 or 7 times. So if you can comp to that, that's a good thing. If you can comp to Back to the Future, that's a dream for me. I love that movie. And then, yeah, in terms of nonfiction, my list is kind of all over the board. I'm I used to say that I'm a picky nonfiction reader, but the more I am out there looking for things, the more I'm realizing that it's broader than what I thought. So yeah, anything that's a unique human experience and what others can learn from it. These mysterious ancient locations around the earth, motherhood and childbirth. I'm very pro woman coming into their own, coming into their own, right? I'm at that stage now where I have rediscovered who I am. It took me how many years to get here, right? But
Yay!
yeah,
I understand
yeah.
completely.
Um so yeah, all about that. Anything to do with music, yeah, it's animals. I'm kind of, again, like, all over the board. So I do have a very extensive list on my on
You
my
do,
website. Yeah, and I do mention too stuff there that I'm not interested in.
which
Um,
I really like because
yeah,
it's helpful for you, but also helpful for anyone looking to query because
yeah,
the query process is a full-time job. That's what it feels
yes,
like. So
yeah,
looking at your list of, I'm not the best agent for blah, 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 blah,
hmm,
the prospective writer can go, oh yeah, okay, she doesn't want my Space Odyssey. Okay, great.
yeah,
Or
yeah,
I can't remember what's on your list, but they can see that you're not going to be able to help them, so save you
right.
both the time. Yeah,
Exactly,
which is
and
really
that's
good.
exactly what it's there for, yeah.
Yeah.
I appreciated that when I was querying. I didn't see that very often, and so when I started agenting, I was like, "You know what? I think this will help people." So, yeah,
It absolutely does. So I
yeah.
know you have two of everything, two websites, two social media everythings. I'm sure because you need to keep them the agent part of your life and the editor
Yes.
part of your life or your business separate. So where is the best place for people to go to find out more about you as an agent and as an editor?
So as an agent, I have my own website apart from the Rice Factory. The Rice Factory is thericefactory.com. My own agenting website is kathleenfoxagent.com. And then my editorial stuff is foxeditorial.com.
And you're on the socials as well, Instagram, YouTube.
Socials. Yeah. Yeah. Okay. So I do post some stuff on YouTube. I started in the fall. Like I used to do um podcasting, right? So I used to do Badass Writers, and I was running Mood Pitch on Twitter when things were still okay on Twitter. um and so I like kind of providing these communities for writers. So I started, but like you know how time consuming a podcast is, right? And I was doing
Yes,
that
I
all on
do.
my own, all of the editing, all of the interviewing and the scheduling and everything. And then I started agenting, and it got to be too much. So it is still out there, but I don't actively um post any new episodes. But so then in the fall, I was like, well, I need to stay active on social media, which is I don't I it's so time consuming.
Another
I
full-time job.
Yes, exactly. So I started doing a post every day, Monday through Saturday, and Wednesdays were WordCraft Wednesdays. So that would be like more line level stuff, and foundational Fridays, and that would be more like big picture elements. Um, so I do WordCraft Wednesdays on YouTube. I might start doing Fridays as well, but again, like I have to keep up with it, right? It's hard to do. But yeah, my Instagram. So sometimes I'll post on both because it's applicable to both editing and agenting. While I don't like editing and agenting, I keep completely separate. But when I'm posting about things, it's applicable to both. So Instagram and most of my socials is going to be underscore literary cat underscore, and then Fox editorial for that side of it.
All right. Kathleen Fox, thank you so much for your time today. Like we were supposed to record this hours ago, and then there was a province-wide power outage in Newfoundland. So this is Friday afternoon. Kathleen is giving us her time. So on behalf of the whole Story Nerd community, thank you. We really appreciate it. Please come back to Story Nerd anytime you want. We would love to have you. And there's just on this call, I thought of, a half dozen other things we could chat about.
Yeah, yeah, I would be happy to come back anytime.
Wonderful. Well, we'll talk to you soon then.
Thank you so much for having me.